Hey guys, this is North back again with another video. Today's video is going to be 15 incense based fragrances that are in my collection. This is the type of video I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I thought it was a little bit too early in the year because here it's right in the dead of summer, so I am not wearing any incense based fragrances outside of the house really. But I was watching YouTube and one of the YouTubers, Ouch110, he did a video with, I believe, 21 of his incense-based fragrances in his collection. So I was like, wow, this is like something I wanted to do. So let me go ahead and get mine out the way so that I can go back and finish watching his video. I didn't want too much of his information because he's very knowledgeable. He's been doing this fragrancing for a long time. I didn't want any of me to be too influenced about what I was going to say about my fragrances. So I just stopped everything, got all of at least 15 of them together because I have more than 15. But just to give you an idea of what incense are and what incense-based fragrances, what they mean to me. So let's get into it. Now, when we are talking about incense-based fragrances or even the note of incense when it comes to perfumery, we're usually talking about two things. One is frankincense, and the word incense is actually in the word, and that is either called olibanum or it's called al-luban in Arabic. So that is one thing that it will refer to as generally that's the main player when a note breakdown mentions incense. Other than that, it could be the burning of incense sticks. So you're looking at woods and smoke as being what they are interpreting as incense. And to me, different perfumers or even people who smell what they consider to be incense when you watch reviewers, to me is obviously up to interpretation. And it reminded me of the flavor of grape, like grape soda, grape candy, things like that. Now, in the United States, of course, you can have different grape candy and different grape sodas that taste a little bit different, but generally our interpretation of grape is sort of one thing. But when I went to Japan, I remember eating the candy and drinking the soda that they have, and its grape flavor, and their interpretation of grape, even though to my taste buds I can interpret it as grape, I can recognize it as grape, but it's a totally different interpretation of the flavor of grape than we have in the United States. Completely different, but they're still considered grape. So let's get into it. So guys, let's start it off with the house of Etat Libre d'Orange, and this is Rien Intense Incense. This is definitely one of the early or first pickups that I have of something. When I smelt it, I said, yes, this definitely is what I'm looking for when it comes to incense. It definitely has the woodiness to it, almost that pencil shaving quality to it. It's just really good. I enjoy it. Released in 2014, and it has incense, labdanum, and amber. This one also is a flanker to the regular Rien. It's a clear bottle. I personally, if you're not into very strong fragrances, I would stick with Rien. They smell exactly the same, except this one is beast mode. I'm an oversprayer. If I spray this more than 3 times, that's too much for me. So definitely, if you're interested, I would check Rien first before I check out the Intense Incense. Next up is from the house of Rochester Parfum. This one was released in 2017, and this one is called Incense Asakusa. This one has iris, olibanum, and cypress. This is one of my more recent pickups. I believe this one is just a really awesome scent. It's beautiful. Some people may not like it. All fragrances are up to interpretation, but this one is definitely high up there on my list. Next up, from the house of Memo Paris, this is Tiger's Nest. All right. Tiger's Nest was released in 2018, and the main players in this are incense, amber, vanilla, and vetiver. This one was one that I was on the fence about getting on, putting on in my collection of incense ones. But after I purchased it, I did sample it a little bit first, but after I purchased it, you could really see the incense in it, and it's just a different interpretation to it. This one is a beautiful fragrance, right? It's pretty complex. I'm very happy that I was able to get this one in my collection. Next on the list is from the house of Robert Piguet. This is Casbah. Casbah was released in 2012, and this one has notes of black pepper, nutmeg, incense, and vetiver. This one reminds me of another one, but once I put it on skin next to each other, they're nothing alike. So this one is a main player when you see the list of incense-based fragrances. So this is something I definitely had to get my nose on. Next is from the house of Giorgio Armani. This is from the Privé collection. This is Bois d'Encens. And this one was released in 2004. So this is an early player in the incense fragrance game. This one has incense, spices, and cedar. So this one is only a 50 ml bottle. So this is what the 50 ml bottle looks like. I'm going to follow that up with another Armani Privé, and this is Incense Satin. So this is another go-to one. This was released in 2014, and this one has incense, amber, and woody notes. This is a beautiful fragrance as well. This one is sweeter than the other one. The other one is mostly woods, whereas this one is also woods, but it has like the sweetness to it that I can't actually place my hands on because the notes on this are very limited, but it's a pretty complex fragrance. It's more complex than Bois d'Encens. Next on the list is from the house of Diptyque, and this is Trois. And this one, surprisingly enough, was released in 1975. And this one has myrrh, spices, and Japanese incense. This is, one of the earlier pickups that I got because the reviewer that was talking about this said that this was the most basically photorealistic version or scent perfume that smelled like unburnt frankincense. So I definitely had to pick this up. This is a eau de toilette. It does not come in an eau de parfum, so it definitely doesn't have a longevity, but it's a beautiful fragrance as well. Next up is from the house of Comme de Garcons, and this one, along with, I believe, in my opinion, Casbah, as I've been doing my research and watching reviews and seeing what's on people's incense lists, this tends to be the originator of the incense based craze, and this is Comme de Garcons Avignon. Now I believe there are four different fragrances in this incense line. This one is supposed to be reminiscent of Orthodox Church, and then they have one that's supposed to represent different religions. So there's one that's dedicated to Islam, there's one that's dedicated to, I believe, Buddhism, there's one that's dedicated to I believe like Eastern Orthodox or Russian Orthodox, so that's Eastern Orthodox. So there's four different ones, but this is the one everybody talks about. And this one, I was comparing this to Casbah because when I smelled Casbah, it reminded me of this. And a lot of quote-unquote incense-based fragrances remind you of this. This was released in 2002. Says it has notes of incense, frankincense, and myrrh. But when I was comparing this to Casbah, they were different. They're definitely different fragrances. They have some similarities, but they're different. And when I went back to this, I realized just how awesome of a scent this is, and that the hype on this, when people talk about it, it's real. This is a very nice fragrance, especially since it was released in 2002. It pretty much predates all of the fragrances that I will mention, except for the Trois from Diptyque. So let's move on to the next one. The next one I'm going to mention on my list is one that I have been trying to get my hands on for the longest time, because one of the other YouTubers, this was at the top of a number of his lists throughout the years when they came to incense-based fragrances or Jovoy or things like that. And this one is called Liturgie de Heures. So I was able to finally get my hands on this one. I was completely so excited to get this one. It came out in 2011, and the main notes on this are cypress, incense, and musk. I can't wait to get more wearings out of this to see where it would rank on either my top 5 or my top 10 list. One thing I do know is that my wife does not like this fragrance. It might be the cypress in it or something like that she thinks is cinnamon, but every time I put this on, she notices. Next up, from the house of Montale, this is Bakhoor, and this one was released in 2018. This particular one has woody notes, incense, and wood resins. When you smell this is another one that sort of reminds me of maybe intense incense, but all it is woods. Just a little bit of smoke and woods. There's no transformation. There's no like dry down and it turns into something else. First thing you spray it on, the first thing you smell when you spray it on is the same thing you're going to smell 5 hours later. But this is something that is a must-have for me when it comes to incense-based fragrances. This is something that when I say what's an incense-based fragrance, this is something that I'm looking for. Next up is from the house of Tom Ford, the private line. This is Vert the Incense, and that translates to green incense. So this one I picked up. This is one of the greatest finds that I have. Let's see when this one came out. This one came out in 2016, and it has wood resin, pine, and incense. Now, this is a beautiful fragrance. This is definitely going to be on my list. That's all I have to say about it. Next up, from the house of Masque Milano, this is Mandala. Now, when I go into places and I'm asking basically for incense-based fragrances, and there's this language barrier, and you find words that are in Arabic and you ask them for it and they still don't find or send you in the right direction, this is not one of those instances. When I asked for Laudano, he sent me this. He sprayed this on me. I said, yes, this is Laudano. This smells like unburdened frankincense along with some other things, but it's an incense fragrance that basically you can wear all year round, in my opinion. It was released in 2017, and the main players in this are incense, cardamom, and myrrh. The next one I'll show you is from the house of Penhaligons, and this is another one that I was like, oh, I have to get my hands on it because it was discontinued, and it was on a couple people's list or one YouTuber's list, and this is Agarbathi. So Agarbathi means incense in Hindi. All right, and this one has Palo Santo, milk, and incense as far as the main players as the notes. This one was released in 2017. This one, even though the name is means incense when you translate it, this one to me, I have to just try it more. I have to wear it more. It's also very light. So something you can get away with wearing all year round. This doesn't have a lot of woods in it, but it's probably their interpretation of the incense that they smell in India, for example. So I'm going to give this some more love because I definitely was looking for it. I was fortunate enough to come across it and get it. Two more. Next up is a brand new one. This one was released in 2020, and this is from the house of Omanluxury. This is Royal Incense. This is another one that sort of reminds me of Mandala, meaning that it is definitely a unburned frankincense type of fragrance with some other things in it. I do enjoy this. A lot of these I have to just get a lot more wearings out of to make my final estimation on where they would end up on my list. And the last one on my list is, let's see, it has to be my most recent acquisition. All of these are relatively new, but this is from Tiziana Terenzi. This is in my previous video, my previous haul video, and this is Laudano Nero. Okay, this one was released in 2014. This are tobacco, honey, and incense. Now this has a ton of notes, so if you watch my previous video, you'll see how many notes that it has. But this one is another one that I had to blind buy because I had to get it off of Amazon. Nobody carries it here, but when I smelt it, I was like, oh, this is an awesome scent. This is beautiful. And also, this is another one that I said when I am looking for incense, my interpretation on my nose, what I consider to be incense-based notes, this has that in it. So this definitely is something that belongs in my collection, and I'm glad I was able to get it for a reasonable price. That's it. Those are 15 fragrances that I have in my collection that are incense based, where incense is the dominant player. When someone wants an incense based fragrance, this is what they're looking for. There's a number of them that I own that I left off the list. This easily could have been 20 or 25, but I left it at 15 to try to save some time and see if you as viewers are interested in seeing more of them. Do you like these lists? Would you like to see other options for incense based fragrances? A couple of them that I didn't mention are Tom Ford Amber Absolute. This one is more of a resinous type of one, more so than a burnt incense or a frankincense type of note. And then there's also this one, Loewe 7 Anomino. This one definitely is an incense-based fragrance. It is, but I recently just got this and I haven't really done a full wearing of it, so I didn't add it. These are things that I'm more familiar with and I've worn, and these are contenders for my top 5 or my top 10 incense-based fragrance. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a comment, please like, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.